Greetings all. So today I just wanted to go over with you why some fruits lose their taste in the refrigerator. And it's something that piqued my interest with recently, actually, it was only within the last few months, when I had this obsession with pineapples because I'm really quite interested in dissolving all of the inorganic sulfur deposits in my body. And I've been told that pineapple is a really good way to dissolve the sulfur in your body because of the bromelain, which is it's actually an organic form of sulfur, but it's quite a powerful enzyme used for, which can actually break down inorganic sulfur from what I've been told. So I was buying boxes of pineapples. I was choosing them. I was eating them. And I had the fruit shop near where I live. They have incredibly good deals. Sometimes you can just buy boxes of fruit for ridiculous prices. And anyway, I bought boxes and boxes of pineapples, and I think it was like $10 a box. And I had just an excess of pineapples. So I thought, what am I going to do with these pineapples? Usually I keep them on the bench. I don't pop them in the fridge, but because I was pretty much mono fasting on pineapples, I didn't have anything in my fridge. So I thought, okay, well, I'll put some pineapples in the fridge. And I did. And it was weird. I noticed that these pineapples pretty much lost almost all of their taste. They were almost tasteless. And I was just like, what the hell? This is crazy. So it's definitely something that piqued my interest, and I did kind of keep an eye on it. I'm like, it must be something to do with the fridge, and I do know about like how keeping things in the fridge can oxidize things and so forth. It's almost similar on a certain degree to, it can be similar to a certain degree to cooking our foods in some ways, from what I've been told. So anyway, so I put together just a little bit of I actually did a little bit of research, and when I learn, I like to tell you guys about what I've learned. So when I learn, you learn. And so I'm just going to present you with basically what I've learned. If you just bear with me one moment. Okay. Bear with me one moment while I bring my screen up. This is working. All right. So let me just share my screen with you. Okay. So yeah, what we're just going to be covering is exactly as I said, why some fruits lose their taste in the refrigerator. And I think it's just like, it's also different between summer and winter fruits. So that's just an important thing to note as well. Now, the difference between summer fruits and winter fruits. So let's go over the summer fruits. So typically what we find in summer fruits is that they have a high water content. So if you're thinking about watermelon and berries, etc., and then they're also rich in volatile compounds. Now, another thing with summer fruits is that generally they tend to ripen, or they continue to ripen after they've been picked. Now, with the winter fruits, for comparison, usually they're lower, or typically lower in water content. So if you think about apples and citrus can be quite juicy, but not as much as what you'd find in watermelon, for example. They're naturally adapted to cooler storage or cooler environments. And they're often picked at or near the peak of their ripeness. So they don't really require additional ripening post-harvest. Now, one thing that's affected, or I should say two things that are affected by refrigeration, is enzyme activity and volatile compounds. So if we think about volatile compounds, let's start there. This is something that I was like, what is that? I didn't really know what that was, so I had to actually go and find out what it was. So the taste and aroma of fruits are often influenced by what we're talking about, volatile compounds. So in fruits like berries and melons, refrigeration can actually reduce the release and perception of these compounds, and this can result in a loss of flavor. However, in fruits like apples and pears, they tend to retain their flavor because their volatile compounds are less affected by the cold. So this is the difference between the winter and summer fruits, right? So volatile compounds in fruits are organic chemicals that are readily vaporize at room temperature, which contribute to the aroma and flavor of the fruit. So these compounds are responsible for distinctive smells and tastes that different fruits possess. So they can be produced naturally by the fruit as it ripens or as a result of an enzymatic reaction or enzymatic reactions. So key types of volatile compounds in fruits are: one, esters. These often are responsible for fruity and floral aromas, and esters are among the most common volatile compounds in fruits. So, for example, and if I might stuff up some of these words, but I'm just going to roll with it anyway. So, isoamyl acetate, this is something that gives the bananas their characteristic smell. This is all getting a little bit sciencey, but sometimes I like to delve into these topics a little bit deeper just to understand. Then we have another volatile compound is actually alcohols within fruit, and these contribute to both aroma and flavor. So ethanol is an example. Other fruit alcohols, there's one called hexanol, and this can impart kind of like a green and grassy note. And then we have number 3, so aldehydes. Compounds like hexanol and acetaldehyde contribute to fresh and green and sometimes sweet notes in fruits. So it's really interesting to kind of see what gives each fruit their own characteristic flavor. And it's got to do with these volatile compounds. Now, number 4 is ketones. And these can provide a sweet and sometimes floral aroma. So when I think about that, I actually think of dragon fruit, because I don't know if you've eaten a red dragon fruit, but it does taste quite florally. So I'm actually quite interested to know if that's one of the primary volatile compounds in dragon fruit. But when I think of floral aroma in a fruit, I think dragon fruit. So, for instance, methyl heptenanone contributes to the scent of some citrus fruits as well. So yeah, it's really interesting to see that they've broken down these compounds. There's another one called terpenes. This one is found in many fruits, especially citrus, and terpenes can be found in a wide range of aromas from sweet and floral to spicy and resinous. So an example of this can include, limonene and myrcene. Now this is one, so the next one, which is something that we're more familiar with, and this is acids. So volatile acids such as acetic acid can contribute to the sourness and tanginess of fruit. So that's an interesting one. So acetic acid. Sounds very similar, doesn't it? So acetic acid, that's the one that basically gives tanginess and sourness. So if we're thinking like lemons and stuff like that. So number 7, phenolics. These compounds can actually add a spicy or smoky or astringent qualities to fruit aromas. So I'm wondering if this is more like your maybe your pomegranates, anything that's quite astringent, some astringent berries as well. An example is eugenol, which is found in cloves and in some fruits. So interesting, in cloves. So the importance of volatile compounds, so the aroma and flavor, this is their primary role, and is to create the unique aromas and flavors that distinguish different fruits from one another. Now, ripeness indicator, this is another thing that volatile compounds are apparently important for. So the profile and concentration of volatile compounds change as the fruit ripens, providing sensory cues for both humans and animals to identify if the fruit is ripe and ready to eat. So yeah, this is why volatile compounds are also important, is because it's really important for us to be eating fruit, right? That's ripe. So there's actually another role which is quite interesting for volatile compounds, is that it's used for plant communication. So volatile compounds can act as a signal for pollinators and as deterrents for pests and pathogens. And this one is not really related to us so much in terms of like when we're refrigerating foods, but it's just interesting to know. So if we're thinking about like nourishment that we're getting from the fruit and therapeutic value, so some volatile compounds have antioxidant properties and other health benefits contributing to the nutritional and therapeutic value of fruit. Yeah, so it's really quite interesting when you kind of look at it from that perspective, so the volatile compounds. Now, just moving on to enzyme activity. So certain fruits such as pineapples, so this is the main one in that actually triggered this interest in what happens when we refrigerate fruit was pineapples. And so if we're thinking about certain fruits like pineapple, bananas, they contain enzymes that are highly sensitive to cold temperatures. So these enzymes contribute significantly to the fruit's flavor and the texture. And it's interesting because when I was eating the pineapple after it was cold, it did actually feel quite different as well. And I don't know why I've never really noticed this before. Maybe it's because now that my body's a lot cleaner and I'm in touch with my taste buds a lot more, I can taste things a lot. I'm a lot more sensitive to these things. Yeah, so it was just quite interesting that I could really pick up on these changes. So these enzymes contribute significantly to the fruit's flavor and the texture, as I said. And when these fruits are refrigerated, the enzyme activity actually slows down, leading to a diminished taste. There you go. So other fruits might not have enzymes that are as affected by the cold temperatures as so much of these ones, so they can maintain their flavor better. So the importance of enzymes. So you may or may not have heard me talk about enzymes in the past, but raw food enzymes are essential for optimal health. And this is because they aid our digestion by initiating the breakdown of, what's happening in our stomach and conserving the body's metabolic enzymes for other crucial functions because we actually create our own enzymes. So the enzymes in fruit have a purpose. So there is actually it was a paper that I read some time ago by someone called Dr. Edward Howell called Enzyme Nutrition. And this highlights that many degenerative diseases are linked to an enzyme deficient diet. And this is also something that I talk about quite often, is there was an experiment called Pottinger's cats, or I don't know if you've heard of it, but Pottinger's cats. And that also reveals how raw foods are linked to enzymes. So I think it was between, off the top of my head, between the years of, it was like around the 1930s and 1940s, a man called Dr. Francis Marion Pottinger, Jr., I think it was, he actually conducted a feeding experiment to determine the effects of heat processed foods on cats. Now, the experiment he originally done, it wasn't actually for that. It was actually for something else, but it kind of veered off onto this path where he started questioning why are these cats that I'm feeding this diet to getting sick and degenerated, and it was cooked foods, opposed to this group of cats where I'm feeding raw foods. So it actually ended up being a 10-year study. And basically what he was doing is that he was, I think he was initially studying these cats for, it was something like undergoing adrenalectomies. He was actually trying to standardize some kind of hormone adrenal treatment. But yeah, anyway, he ended up somehow having these two groups of cats that he studied separately, eating completely different diets. And as I mentioned, one was eating a cooked diet and one was eating raw. Then the raw cats were by far exceeding the cooked diet cats in their health. So yeah, that forced him to kind of really look into it. And what it was found is that it was due to the raw enzymes in the food. So there's been a little bit more work or study done into this as of recent times. And what it's been found is that cooking at a temperature at about 47 degrees Celsius, and I think it's like 118 degrees Fahrenheit, actually destroys these enzymes. So yeah. And then not only that, refrigeration, it's actually been proven that refrigeration can actually reduce the activity of these enzymes as well. So then, therefore that results in an increased strain on the body's enzyme reserves. And if we're creating strain in our body, it's actually taking away from our life force energy because then we're having to reproduce all of those things again. So therefore, consuming the raw foods, and this is like we've digressed a little bit from the refrigeration, but it's all kind of tied in and linked into the same topic. But therefore, consuming raw foods, and if one is consuming a lot of cooked foods, really they should be considering taking some kind of enzyme supplement because that will just help them maintain health, prevent disease, and enhance overall vitality if they're not ready to move back to a raw and fruit-based diet where we're going to be getting those live enzymes. So yeah, essentially enzyme activity, volatile compounds. This is to critical factors as to why refrigeration is not ideal for pretty much most and all fruit. Okay. So other things that are affected by refrigeration is moisture content and cellular structure. So if we're thinking about fruits with a high water content, such as watermelon and citrus fruits, they can lose moisture in the refrigerator, especially if they're not stored properly, and this can lead to a less juicy and flavorful experience. And I've experienced that directly myself. On the other hand, fruits with a lower water content, like apples, grapes, etc., they can actually fare a little bit better in the refrigerator without significant flavor loss. And here we're just really looking at flavor loss. We're not looking at the other impacts, right? Like the enzyme loss and stuff like that. For me, this is kind of just giving a little bit more context as to why the flavor goes. But when you know about the enzyme loss, like for me, that makes me feel like I definitely don't want to refrigerate my fruits as much as I can. But there may be certain cases where you do, just for preservation. So cold temperatures can cause at a cellular level. So if we're looking at cellular structure here, so the cold temperatures can cause changes at the cellular level in some fruits, and this is affecting their texture and flavor profile. So fruits like tomatoes and avocados are particularly susceptible to this kind of damage, and it can lead to a loss of taste and a change in texture. In contrast, if we're thinking about orange and apples, they are a little bit more resistant to their changes, and they can maintain their quality better when refrigerated. Righty-o. So the ripening process. Now, this is one that's very important, and I did kind of touch on this a little bit earlier, but fruits that continue to ripen after being picked, such as bananas and avocados and peaches and so forth, have their ripening process disrupted by refrigeration. So yeah, think about like summer fruits. These ones typically tend to continue to ripen after post-harvest. So we really want to be focusing on keeping those out of the fridge as much as we can, especially if we want to get them to their full flavor, right? So conversely to this, so fruits that are picked ripe, generally ripe or close to ripeness, like berries and grapes, they're less affected by refrigeration in terms of ripening. So it is important to ensure that we are eating ripe fruit. This is really, really important, especially as a fruitarian or if you're on any kind of raw fruit-based diet, if you don't associate with the word fruitarian. And this is because eating unripe fruit, it can be overly acidic. Example, for if we're thinking about pineapples, right? They can, especially if we're eating those raw, they can be really, really acidic. And I've learned the hard way with that. And then if we think about starchy fruits, such as bananas, well, as they ripen, their starch content declines. So we want to eat bananas as ripe as possible. And the reason why is that we're eating green bananas and they're still starchy. This is going to cause mucus, right? So we want to be eating ripe fruits because this is going to reduce the likelihood of creating any acidic load on the body or excess mucus. So in conclusion, while refrigeration is an effective way to extend shelf life of many fruits, and to be honest, like there's still going to be occasions when I'm going to be refrigerating fruit, it is essential to consider how it affects the taste and texture and also the vital enzymes that we want to be consuming, right? So summer fruits like pineapples, peaches, and berries, they are more sensitive to cold. And they're definitely less susceptible, more susceptible, I should say, to losing their distinct flavors. And I've experienced this with strawberries as well. And I've been like, why? What's wrong with these strawberries? They taste completely flavorless. So yeah, consider the summer fruits. Try and keep them out of the fridge as long as you can, and consume them warm, room temperature. So I personally have some big shelves. They're like warehouse shelves in my kitchen. And I basically store all my fruit on there. Sometimes I do put some things in the fridge if it looks like that I'm not going to be able to eat them in time before they turn. But for the most part, I try and keep everything outside these days. So it's just something to consider. But in contrast, just going on to the winter fruits, so if you think about apples, pears, and citrus fruits, they retain their quality better in the refrigerator. And I suppose it's good to understand these things so you can make more informed choices about how you store your fruits and how you enjoy them. Um, but by all means, there may be some situations, especially in summer, where you may be inclined to want to put some things in the fridge because it's so hot and your fruit's going to turn and go off. So if you need to put them in the fridge to save them, then do so. But anyway, I hope this kind of helps because it helps me understand a little bit more about refrigeration and why maybe we should avoid it. And it definitely comes back to those raw enzymes. We want to protect those enzymes as much as possible because the more that we're getting from the fruit, that's going to be helping our body um, in not taxing our enzymes, if that makes sense. So yes, I hope this helps. I hope you're having a great day, enjoying some beautiful fruits in the sun. That's what I'm going to go and do now. I'm going to get out there and yeah, enjoy the beautiful sunlight. And I'm actually going to go and eat some pineapple now. I have some beautiful pineapples. I actually got another $10 box from the fruit shop that I go to. So yes, onwards and upwards with the pineapple. And I'll chat to you soon. Ciao.